So yes, dear lovely people, we just wrapped up a panel discussion, and coming up next is going to be a really interesting fireside chat. So it's on the topic of navigating the path to entrepreneurial success, the journey. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, to initiate this whole chat, we would like to welcome the co-founder of Sangatna Angels, Miss Vaishali James. Give it up, please. So yes, it's a really interesting topic, the journey towards entrepreneurial success. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, let's all put our hands together in welcoming Ms. Vaishali James and Ms. Jaya Vaidhyanathan to kindly join the stage. நல்ல ஒரு பலத்த கைத்தட்டல் கொடுக்கலாம். A hearty welcome to both of you.
I'm going to quickly set the context. At the end, just raise your hands if you can hear me. Everyone? Great. In a controlled two-group environment, seeds were given to both the groups. The only instruction to the group was germinate them and bring them back after a couple of months. Let's see the results. Two groups, they were given the same seeds and same instructions were given to them. Germinate them and bring them back. After a few months, the results were in. One of the groups, they just tilled the soil, put the seeds in, and watered them. The seeds obviously grew because they're watering them. The second group, they tilled the soil, put the seeds in, watered it, put biofertilizers, and kept checking the leaves for any pest control, pest attack. And when they found something not good on the leaf, they removed the leaf, treated it with biofertilizers, and then brought the results back. So one of the groups, the plant survived, and in the second group, the plant thrived. It did extremely well. So talking about surviving and thriving of seeds is actually very similar to what happens to startups as well. If you reflect back to what Suresh was talking about, a lot of startups have great ideas, they do well in the beginning, but the success depends on the longevity, and how you thrive depends on what you put into the startup. And that's what we're going to talk about with Jaya. My first conversation with her actually was very interesting. So we're trying to understand back and forth what kind of questions to ask. She just tells me one thing: I don't need to know what questions you're going to ask me. She wants to go ex-tempo. She says, bring it on. Bring the questions, and then we'll see, we'll go from there. The only thing I did want to prepare was, how do I introduce her? The amount of information about Jaya, simply because she's been there, done that in practically all parts of the world, is so huge. I had to write it down so I don't miss anything important. Quick read. She's the CEO of BCT Digital, a global technology company specializing in innovation for financial services. She holds an MBA in finance and strategy from Cornell University and is a CFA charter holder. She's renowned for her courageous approach to tackling mammoth issues such as NPA, fraud, and climate change, leveraging technology solutions to address urgent matters of national and global issues. Throughout her career, Jaya has broken gender stereotypes, excelling in mergers and acquisition across various sectors. She's a strong advocate for women in STEM fields and strives for gender equality in board positions as well. Her accolades include FinTech Woman Leader of the Year 2022, India's Most Trusted CEO Award 2022, Global Indian of the Year 2022, and the Stevie Awards. Google up Stevie Awards. It just blew my mind what these Stevie Awards are about. So that's Jaya Vaidhyanathan. Please put your hand together and let's have a conversation. So Jaya, when Suresh was talking, the first thing he said was, understand what problems you're trying to solve for a customer. So in your entire journey, pick one pain point that you saw either in your career or in somebody else's career line. How did you identify that pain point, and what did you do to overcome that pain point?
So he did speak about understanding the pain point. I think you can't sell if you don't understand pain points. It's not about your product pitch. It's about the pain that somebody's undergoing. And it's not just identify the pain, it's empathize with the pain. It's also try to say, I can alleviate your pain. You won't go to a doctor, to use that analogy, if he says, oh, this is your problem, if he doesn't give you the pill. So unless you have the solution for the problem, just to say, oh, I know what's happening to you, doesn't help much. So in every situation that you've sold or a large deal that you've done, I've always looked at that. What is that? Why are they coming up with this? Whether it's an RFP or anything. But let me come back to the most current, some of the requirements today. We started, or I founded this company primarily because I felt that the economic backbone of our country in India was being threatened by the kinds of NPAs, the amount of loan frauds. And people like us who sit predominantly outside India but feel very passionate about India often feel this is not the news I want to read about. This is something that I want to do something about it to make sure that that doesn't happen. So with all that passion of saying, as an Indian origin person, I don't want to listen to, India has all these problems, banks are going to run, the NPA is there. So the passionate problem was, how do we kind of bring back India onto a even keel of saying, we are not a country that has only frauds. We are very recipient to foreign investment. We can take care of your money. We are very resilient for our own people, because you don't trust even your family member with your money, but you trust a bank with the money. And when you have that kind of a trust, that means that you need to pay back for that. And with that was the design of our first product, which was to say we will prevent NPAs from happening. It was a bold statement at that point, because we said it's not about forensic look at NPAs, but it's about preventive lens at NPAs. And very proudly, a year after we launched and the product was launched and it was adopted by banks, a very prominent bank came up and said, because in the newspapers, saying because we had an early warning system in place, we brought down our NPAs significantly, it's back to low single digits. And this was kind of recognized by RBI, recognized by all of that, and almost most public sector banks use it. But all of these points, like I'm saying, come back to the point of saying, what is your burning need? And it stems from that. Be it climate now, that is something that, we often think that climate is a problem for the rich. It's not. Because climate is a problem also for the poor. We have more and more, hurricanes, we have floods. Was it raining a few years ago in Chennai? No. So I think it rains every year, and it rains a lot. So it's more about, it's not a question of the, problem of embarrassment of riches or rich people's problem. It is a problem at the ground level. And that needs a very different take in different countries. And we, passionately also, it's not about adopting global products. It's about looking at make in India for India, because we are quite unique. Long answer to your question.
So NPA, just a quick one, non-performing assets for people who don't understand NPA. I'm pretty sure you all understand it, but non-performing assets is what NPA is about. So Jaya, tell me, she's had an illustrious career in HCL, Accenture, Standard Chartered. What made you give up such a, sorry for the language, but cushy corporate job and venture into the unknown waters of a startup? Everybody here is a startup, and I'm sure some of them have made these conscious decisions to leave very, very good paying jobs. So what prompted you to do that?
See, I think when you have a passion, you have to follow it. Steve Jobs said this, I didn't, I'm paraphrasing it. He said that don't leave somebody else's life. And when somewhere that you needs action for you to step in, you need to step in. So if everybody is in a very comfortable cushion, then who's going to do the job? So I think part of that was also prompted by the need that India had. And especially when you're sitting outside as India diaspora, and you hear about, oh, India, if you give every dollar you send, you're going to not even get 20 cents off. If that's the image that we have, we feel that as somebody that spent considerable amount of the childhood in India, you feel passionately about wanting to do something. And that is, it needs deep tech, it needs financial services to solve the problem, and we have the bandwidth of knowing how to solve the problem. So there's no point in standing on the fences and saying somebody else is going to do it. You go there to the ditches and do it. And trust me, it's not very easy, especially if you've been like a CEO, you've been a managing partner in Accenture, you've got kind of that kind of perspective, and you take a lot of things for granted. You have a workforce, you think things are going to happen, to kind of saying, recruiting the first person, and that, person is going to ask you a lot of questions. And fairly so, because that's his career he's placing the bets on. But it's all your reputation and the vision, and it's not your dream, it's our dream of what you translate and how well you translate that actually communicates that to somebody else. Whereas if you say in a big concern like Accenture or HCL, the brand is something different, it's not you. So here it transforms to you, and you are saying it transforms to the passion of solving that problem. And so you want co-conspirators in solving the problem rather than a brand that you're asking people to join. It's a very different outlook, but it needs that passion and the drive to say, I'm going to do something about it.
So I've listened to some of your earlier conversations, and one thing I think is a repeated theme is think big or go home. Talk to us about it. I'm sure the startups also want to understand that how, even if it's a small idea, how do you think big or go home?
Yes, so thinking big is really important, and that happens even for people in corporate jobs, not just for startups. Because unless you kind of say, I'm going to start at this and not look at incremental growth, you need to say, I'm going to bring the next thing. Most people here, I'm sure, are of some technology background or are using technology for their business. So technology obsolescence, earlier Moore's law was 18 months. Now it is like 6 months. So it's not about even saying, can I think incrementally? You can't, because whatever you were thinking incrementally is gone. So you need to leverage a lot of new tools, new technologies to make your business work, which means you need to be very current and you need to think of a solution to a problem before anybody else did. So that is thinking big. It doesn't have to be like I invest millions of dollars and therefore you're thinking big. Thinking big is about how big a problem to how many people will that problem address and what are you fundamentally solving. So as long as that's clear, and it's in a space where not many people are venturing, then that makes sense. Now, let me flip back with the use case in point. You asked about my experience. So one of the things was also about, I could have done a million things when I said I'm an entrepreneur. We picked on the biggest problem the country was facing. And that was why, as an entrepreneur, that has the lowest entry barriers, because nobody else is looking at it, number one. Number two, it's a risk management and it's got a growth story too, because it's just not one bank, it's the entire banking system. And what you build for India, how much can you take it to the globe? You can take it around to the globe. Now, if you look at the US, for example, the same non-performing assets, it's happening in the commercial real estate sector, because people are not going back to offices. You can't mandate that in the US. And people are kind of like not going back, so all the rentals of commercial space is lying vacant. So big thrust on non-performing assets in the commercial real estate space. So it's also about thinking not only whether this problem is big enough to solve. Second is how many people are affected by it. Third is to also look at scalability within the remit of the country and also how applicable it is around the world. So I think it's like think big, think home. Look at the problem before you put a penny on saying, starting something to code. So think about the problem, the ramifications, talk to people. The best way that I would say in my entrepreneurial journey, I found surveys quite useful. The first way we even started was not to put a lot of dollars into this. Most people think, oh, you came from that background, so you invested a lot of money. We didn't. What we did was just invest the thought process. So which was more, a survey doesn't cost much. So we went and surveyed most public sector banks in India and came up with, this is the root of the problem. Where will you find the data? What can you do? All of that. And published this as a survey which didn't cost much, but it was so well received. But all the banks said, yeah, that's the problem. And the RBI said, oh, that's the problem and we need to do something about it. So I think it's more about the idea and how well you think through it and how relevant is the idea.
I'm just going to pick a thread from what you just said. So you've done the survey. You've obviously got a really large issue that the country is dealing with. The first sale often is probably the toughest one.
Yes.
So talk to us about that. Who did you go to and how did you get your point across?
So like I said, we started with a survey that was very well received. It didn't cost a lot. It was just one person that joined me, and we had a more junior assistant who actually called people, helped them fill the survey. But it was with public sector banks. So it was something, like I said, RBI took an interest in it. Because they said, you know what, it's not just people. I mean, when I ask, if as India diaspora outside, if you're feeling, you're feeling very bad that people are talking negatively about it, you can imagine RBI. They obviously also say, what are we doing about the banking system? That's their problem, right? So there was a lot of interest in that survey. And then they asked, when there is a good solution, the answer finds itself. So I think it's more, the question was very clear. We need to solve the NPA problem. The answer was also quite clear. And then people rally around it to make it happen. So whether it was RBI mandate on saying all PCA banks need to comply with it, and without that they would not get fresh funding. That was a big thing. And that was a mandate. So every public sector bank had to go with it, or PCA bank. So the RFP came very soon. And since we had thought through the problem so logically, we were the first ones to win the deal. And even now we have greater than 90% market share in that particular product. So some of the deals we actually say no because of unfavorable commercials or whatever, but we've not lost a deal. So that is the domain and the knowledge and the passion you put into that product.
I can see some women here at the back. Women, all women sitting here, can you raise your hands, please? Okay, this one's for you. As an entrepreneur, I'm sure you faced a lot of challenges. Yeah. Are there challenges that you face as a woman entrepreneur that your male counterpart would not face? Could you talk to us about one of those challenges?
If somebody says entrepreneurial world isn't challenging, don't believe them. It is challenging. Being a woman is harder to convince because they want to know what is your support system. Are you going to leave this halfway through? So these challenges are something they ask at all ages. I thought they asked me when I was 20 years old, because then there was a path, I'm getting married, you're going to have children, are you going to quit, all that stuff. But it happens at, even later in your life. So it's more about how much you're bringing, what is your connect, what's your network, all of that really matters a lot. So there are challenges, but I think we've been trained to work with challenges, since birth. So I think it gets easier for us to kind of go with that and say, I don't really care. I'm a person. I'm not a man or a woman in a corporate environment or in a setup. So that gets reflected very soon as you have that domain or deep domain or the conversation or you open your mouth. The minute that you open your mouth, rest of the world, quietens and their ideas go away. So I think it's important to have that core competence and confidence in your core competence. And not just confidence, but continuously educating yourself on your core competence. So once you have core competence, rest of the world quietens and listens to you.
So that's a very, very, very good perspective to the whole gender conversation, that if your core competence is on money, it doesn't really matter man or woman, right? Okay, so for want of time, one last question. Plenty of startups here. One life advice that you would like to give them on success and continued success to thrive?
So I think the course that you've chosen is a great one, because you are not going on well-trodden paths, but you're defining your own path. So believe in yourself. Believe that you're here to do something different. And that belief will propel through all the hardships that you go through the way. It's always not going to be easy, but then if it were easy, you wouldn't have chosen this path. So I think it's all about the passion, it's your ability to communicate, it's your ability to bring and pull people together to a common cause. And that startup should not be just your passion. That passion needs to be communicated. It's more like, are you chipping stones or building the cathedral? It's not about you kind of quitting your job that's the hardest. It is about the rest of the people wanting to quit a job and then join you. When I started this entrepreneurial venture, I got a bunch of people who are very well established in Accenture. They said, oh, you've started a company, I'll join. What is it about? Here's what I'm going to do. Oh, I believe in this. So I'm going to come for that. So a short answer to that is don't let go of your goal, because you first bring it out because you are very passionate about it, and passions don't die. So you follow through your passion, and then the challenges will just part ways, and where there were doors, you will find windows. And the world will open up for you. The rest is all something that's waiting to happen. There are a lot of us waiting to mentor, and it's all about asking the right people, asking the right questions, and staying on the course.
Thank you so much, Jaya. Unfortunately, we don't have too much time left. If you did have any questions for her, she's going to be around here for a few minutes more. She needs to go for another meeting. So catch up with her on the sidelines if there are any questions. We have 5 seconds into the session. Sunil David's going to be very pleased. Ma'am?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was an enlightening chat. Thank you. Put your hands together, please. And I'm sure we will be having a lot of questions too. So we request all of you to deal it up off stage. So yes, and we also have mementos for these two bold and beautiful ladies. So can we have that on stage, please? And can I request Ms. Vaishali to present the memento to Ms. Jaya Vaidhyanathan? Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause. And to present the memento for Ms. Vaishali, can I request Mr. Sunil David to kindly join us? Welcome, sir.